The guy's special. Anytime he's on the field, he's a game changer. He's a playmaker. So I'm not surprised that he was the one that came up with the big play to win it for us. I mean, we fight for each other. I mean, that's everybody. I mean, I don't think they're fighting so hard because of me. I don't think they're fighting so hard because of Kevin. We fight because we have each other.
Myles Garrett showed every ounce of his emotion during a recent press conference, stepping straight into the media storm to defend one of his teammates in the strongest way he could. All eyes were on Shedeur Sanders, the young quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, who had been taking heat for his recent performances. Sanders had faced steady criticism for his play, especially after a stretch of rough games that had people talking sideways. But following the Browns' clash with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Garrett was done letting the noise run wild. He made it clear that Shedeur Sanders is not just part of the lineup, but a core piece of what this team does on the field. In Garrett's view, Sanders is the main playmaker, the guy who sets the tone when it matters most. When Garrett was pressed about Sanders' performance, he did not sugarcoat anything. He used the moment to shut down the rumors and confusion that had been circling around his quarterback. Garrett explained that when Sanders is locked in, he controls the flow of the game and bends it his way. That ability showed up clearly in the win over the Steelers, where Sanders managed the game and delivered when the pressure was on. Garrett's words went beyond talent and stats. They were aimed straight at the constant criticism coming from the media. Many had questioned whether Sanders could truly lead the Browns, pushing narratives about shaky chemistry and suggesting problems inside the locker room. Some even hinted that the spotlight might be too heavy for him to carry as the face of the offense. Myles Garrett addressed all of that head-on, making it clear he was not letting his quarterback be painted in a false light. According to Garrett, the talk about Sanders not clicking with his teammates was flat out wrong. He stressed that the team believes in Shedeur Sanders fully, with no cracks and no sides being taken. The message was simple and steady. There was unity, trust, and shared confidence across the roster. Shedeur Sanders is their guy, and the team is moving as one, grinding together and backing each other every step of the way. Myles Garrett's frustration was impossible to miss as he made it clear there was no space left for doubting Shedeur Sanders' ability or commitment to the Cleveland Browns.
You want to make the most of it every time you step on the field. And you know what the guy next to you has put into it. You know what this means to him. And you don't want to take this for granted.
From Garrett's point of view, the reality was simple. Sanders was answering every challenge thrown his way, and the constant questioning had gone too far. The veteran defensive leader made it obvious that the conversation around Sanders needed to change. The Browns were fresh off a statement win against their divisional rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Sanders played a major role in making that happen. He was dealing with more than just the responsibility of leading the offense. He was carrying the non-stop spotlight from the media, where every mistake was magnified and every slow drive sparked criticism. Still, on this stage, Sanders showed why he belongs as the Browns' starting quarterback. Facing heavy pressure, Sanders delivered when it mattered most. His performance cut through the noise and challenged the doubts that had followed him. Against the Steelers, he stayed calm, focused, and confident, even as the defense brought heat on nearly every snap. The moment never looked too big for him, and his poise stood out from start to finish. Cleveland was up against one of its toughest opponents, a defense known for disrupting quarterbacks and forcing chaos. Sanders never looked rattled. He ran the offense with control, executed plays with sharp timing, and kept the chains moving. The ball came out clean, the reads were smart, and the offense stayed on schedule because of his command. There were several moments when the Steelers' defense closed in fast, and it looked like the pocket was collapsing. Instead of panicking, Sanders stayed steady and made the right call. Accurate throws, smart decisions, and patience under pressure showed clear growth in his game. It was the kind of performance that backed up Garrett's stance and showed why the team continues to believe in him. Another major piece of Sanders' impact showed up in his leadership on the field. One of the most impressive parts of his performance was his accuracy from start to finish. He kept his completion percentage high and made timely throws that helped the Cleveland Browns hold possession and control the pace of the game. That steady execution stood in sharp contrast to Aaron Rodgers, one of the league's most recognizable quarterbacks, who struggled to find any real rhythm. Rodgers ended the game completing just 53% of his passes, while Shedeur Sanders played with far more efficiency and control. He delivered when the moment called for it, showing that production matters more than reputation. But the night was not only about numbers on a stat sheet. Sanders' leadership was impossible to overlook, especially considering the non-stop pressure and criticism surrounding him leading into the matchup. Instead of letting the noise shake him, Sanders stayed locked in. He treated the pressure like motivation, staying focused on proving he belonged at this level. Against the Steelers, he played with purpose and confidence, handling the moment like someone who had been there before. The performance sent a clear signal that Sanders was not just filling a role, but actively shaping the team's direction. That game also pushed back hard against the idea that Sanders was some long-term project. he showed that he was already a key contributor for the Browns, capable of leading in real situations against real competition.
You know, we got great players on the hungry dogs. So Sal was able to come back in and be able to get his feet wet.
The talk about him being unready or overmatched did not line up with what played out on the field. For Myles Garrett, this situation went deeper than defending a single performance. It was about protecting the character and credibility of his quarterback. Garrett made it clear through his stance that Sanders was not a young player lost in the league. He was a leader, a competitor, and someone who had earned the respect of the locker room. Garrett's belief in Shedeur Sanders came across as firm and intentional. This was about trust, confidence, and backing a quarterback the team believed in. The message was steady and direct. Sanders had the support of his teammates and the presence to lead this team forward. Myles Garrett made it clear that the Cleveland Browns were steady with Shedeur Sanders running the offense. It was never just about arm talent or highlight plays. Garrett focused on Sanders' presence, his leadership, and his ability to stay level when the pressure started closing in. Time and time again, Sanders showed he could handle big moments and deliver when the team needed him most, and Garrett was not about to let that get brushed aside. As the media kept questioning where Sanders fit into the Browns' future, Garrett stepped in to shut the doubt down. He refused to let anyone downplay the work Sanders had put in or the growth he showed week after week. From Garrett's point of view, Sanders earned his role through preparation, focus, and consistency. The backing from the locker room was real, and Garrett made it clear he was standing behind his quarterback without hesitation. The Browns' win over the Pittsburgh Steelers became a turning point, not just in the standings, but in how Sanders was viewed across the league. This was a game where he showed the doubters he could guide the team through tough moments and come out on top. The spotlight was heavy, but Sanders stayed composed and delivered. He was not just making routine plays, he was making the right plays at the right time. His calm approach, accurate throws, and patience in the pocket helped Cleveland control the game when it mattered. But what separated him most was the way he led the offense, keeping everyone locked in and moving together. For the fans watching, the message was simple and direct. Shedeur Sanders was not some distant promise or long-term idea. He was already part of the present. This was a young quarterback showing real potential to push the team forward and raise the ceiling. When the pressure came, he answered with confidence and control. Myles Garrett's words carried weight inside the locker room, where the team stayed united behind their quarterback. The Browns were no longer searching for direction. They were moving with belief, trust, and shared purpose. At the center of that trust was Shedeur Sanders.
And OTAs had a great attitude. He's a hardworking guy. He has a good head on his shoulders, and he's always positive, always optimistic, always keeps a smile on his face. And you like going to work with people who have that kind of attitude.
Garrett's defense of him was not about one game or one moment. It was about setting the record straight and backing the guy leading the huddle. This moment was about making it known that Shedeur Sanders had the full support of the Cleveland Browns, from the locker room to the fan base. The second guessing needed to stop. The constant questioning had run its course. Sanders had already put the proof on the field, and Myles Garrett made sure that message landed. This was bigger than silencing critics. It was about showing that the Browns were building something real. With leaders like Garrett on defense and Sanders running the offense, the direction of the franchise started to look different. The confidence inside the building was growing, and the belief was no longer quiet. The media may have doubted Sanders earlier, but after that performance, ignoring his ability was no longer an option. His leadership, decision-making, and timing showed up when the moment demanded it. For Cleveland, this felt like the start of a new chapter. That game did more than lock Sanders in as the team's quarterback. It sent a message across the league that the Browns were not just competing, they were pushing forward with purpose. Garrett's steady support of Sanders reflected a locker room that was fully aligned. Everyone was pulling in the same direction, locked in on the same goal. With Sanders leading the offense, the tone was set. He earned the trust of his teammates through preparation, poise, and consistency. Step by step, he proved he could carry the responsibility that comes with being the face of the team. Garrett and the rest of the roster stood firmly behind him, showing that belief was not just talk. The criticism that followed Sanders earlier in the season lost its weight. He showed he could handle the pressure that comes with playing quarterback in Cleveland. When the lights were bright and the defense was aggressive, he stayed composed and delivered. That performance spoke louder than any outside noise. This was more than just a win on the schedule for the Browns. It was a statement about belief, trust, and direction. The team showed they were united behind their quarterback and committed to building something together. With Shedeur Sanders leading the way, the future in Cleveland looked steady, focused, and full of possibility. The shift inside the Cleveland Browns did not happen overnight. It was built through moments like this, when pressure tested the team and the response came from unity instead of excuses. Shedeur Sanders did not flinch when the spotlight tightened. He leaned into the role, handled the responsibility, and showed growth that could not be ignored. What stood out most was how the team moved around him. The offense trusted his decisions. The defense fought harder knowing the quarterback could hold his own. That kind of balance does not happen by accident. It comes from respect earned in practice, preparation, and real game moments. Myles Garrett's support was not symbolic. It reflected a locker room that had already chosen its direction. Sanders was not being carried by the moment. He was steering it. Each drive, each read, and each calm reaction under pressure added to the belief that this team was evolving. For Cleveland, this stretch was about confirmation. Confirmation that the quarterback could lead. Confirmation that the leaders were aligned. Confirmation that the Browns were no longer stuck reacting to narratives but shaping their own path forward. This was a team learning how to trust itself, and that trust started under center. As the dust settled, the bigger picture came into focus. The Cleveland Browns were not chasing approval anymore. They were building momentum. Shedeur Sanders had stepped into the role with control and confidence, while the rest of the roster rallied behind him without hesitation. The league often talks about leadership like it is something you announce. In Cleveland, it showed up in actions. Sanders stayed steady when chaos tried to creep in. Garrett stood firm when outside voices pushed doubt. The team followed suit, locking into a shared mindset that changed how they carried themselves. This is how teams turn corners, not with hype, but with trust that shows up when it matters. Sanders proved he could handle the weight of expectations. Garrett proved that leadership means protecting your own. Together, they helped shift the Browns from a team trying to prove something into a team that already knows who it is. For fans and observers watching closely, this stretch offered clarity. The Browns are moving forward with purpose. The quarterback has the room, the locker room has belief, and the foundation feels solid. The story is still unfolding, but the direction is clear. Cleveland is no longer waiting for its moment. It is stepping into it. This entire stretch made one thing clear about the Cleveland Browns and where they are headed. The noise, the doubt, and the constant outside chatter never shook the foundation inside the locker room. When pressure showed up, the team closed ranks. When questions got louder, the response came on the field. At the center of it all stood Shedeur Sanders, backed fully by Myles Garrett and the rest of the roster. This was never just about one performance or one win. It was about belief turning into action. Sanders showed he could carry responsibility, stay composed, and lead when the moment demanded it. Garrett showed what real leadership looks like by standing on business for his quarterback. Together, they shifted the conversation around this team. The Browns are no longer chasing identity, they are defining it. A team that protects its own, trusts its leaders, and moves with purpose. The rest of the league is watching closely now, whether they admit it or not. If you want to stay locked in on stories like this, the moments behind the moments, and the real dynamics shaping teams across the league, that is exactly what Huddle Files is built for. This is where the deeper context lives, where football stories do not stop at the headline. The saga does not end here. It keeps unfolding. And you already know. We'll have every second of it broken down, every twist, every leak, every hidden play behind the headlines. So subscribe, drop a comment, and share it out. Stay locked in with Huddle Files, where the real NFL stories live.